What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we are headed back to the People's Republic of Chicago. Yes, once again, we are going back to the People's Republic of Chicago. Why is that? Because like I always say, the foolishness and nonsense never ends over there, especially when you have an emperor as stupid as Emperor Brandon Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen and heard it all now. Brandon Johnson snitched to the United Nations. Yes, you heard me correctly. He went to the United Nations and snitched on Donald Trump and Tom Homan. This has to be one of the craziest things that I've ever seen and just completely ridiculous. Look at this here.
Mayor Brandon Johnson is asking the United Nations to intervene to stop your operations. Here is what he said before the UN Human Rights Council. Listen to this.
The federal government's immigration enforcement has been marked by violence and an assault on the dignity of all Chicagoans. I call on this council to hold the federal government of the United States to the same standards of accountability you apply elsewhere in the world.
How do you go to the United Nations to ask them to come regulate policy that was enacted by Congress here in this country? ICE is enforcing immigration law that was put in place and put in practice by the United States Congress. There is nothing illegally happening here. And I get the game. They're going to keep saying it's unconstitutional and things of that nature. But to go to the United Nations and ask them to intervene is next level stupid. It really is next level stupid at this point, because what in the world do you think that they're going to do? that's just craziness. That's crazy. You're going to the United Nations to ask them to stop Trump and Tom Homan from enforcing federal immigration law. This guy is just unbelievable, to say the very least. Let's get going and get back into this, because Tom Homan's going to have a little something to say, and I haven't heard it yet. So let's check this out.
No country should be above international law. I urge the Human Rights Council to consider additional measures of accountability, including a special session to examine the worsening human rights crisis in the United States.
Tom, this is just pure lunacy, but what is your reaction to all of that?
He's just proving he's not that smart, right? I mean, asking the United Nations to interfere with ICE enforcing U.S. law, it's like asking an arsonist how to stop a fire. Because the UN, remember, the IOM, the part of the UN, helped fund the mass migration during the Biden administration 4 years, spending millions upon millions of dollars helping that migration, international migration, come to the United States. So, the United Nations is not going to tell President Trump what to do. President Trump was put in office on the promise of making this country safe again, on the promise of having the historic deportation operation. That's exactly what America is getting. Every criminal alien ICE and Border Patrol takes off the street makes this country safer. We have the most secure border in the history of the nation right now because of leadership of President Trump, the men and women of the Border Patrol, and because ICE. What ICE is doing in the interior every day, they've sent a message across the globe. Don't spend your life savings, cross the border illegally, think you're going to get away in the United States. Because of what ICE is doing, people aren't spending their life savings, putting themselves in harm's way. Thousands of people aren't dying making that journey. Thousands of Americans aren't dying from fentanyl because of that secure border. But the actions of the interior, the ICE and Border Patrol, has a lot to do why we have the most secure border in the history of this nation today.
And you're doing such a great job, Tom. Kevin Cork here.
You really think about this for a moment, right? Going back to the whole protecting democracy thing, democracy is on the line. Trump is anti-constitution. How anti-constitution are you? How against the democracy are you? If you're going to the United Nations to ask them to stop Trump from doing what the American people voted him to do, really let that sit on your mind. You're going to other nations, other countries, to say, hey, 77 million people, I believe it was, voted for this man to be president of the United States. But we need the international community to step in to stop Trump from enacting the policies that the American people voted him in to put into place. That is mind blowing. And you'll see this type of stupidity is encouraged, of course, by, of all places, MSNBC. Recently, Brandon Johnson was talking to Al Sharpton, of all people, on MSDNC. And Al Sharpton asked him about this and like how recently you went to the United Nations to snitch. And let's just hear what, Brandon Johnson had to say as far as his reasonings for why he did that.
Now, you've asked the United Nations Human Rights Council to scrutinize ICE's actions in your city, requesting that the council hold a special session on what you've called a worsening human rights crisis in the U.S. under President Trump. Your request followed a federal judge issuing an injunction last week that limits ICE's use of force in Chicago under Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. What do you hope to accomplish by bringing the world's attention to what's happening in your city, Mr. Mayor?
Well, look, the city of Chicago has longed for universal human rights to be applied locally. And, either our human rights are universal or they're meaningless. What we have seen is a great deal of terror that has been executed across our city. It has had a profound impact on our day to day. I mean, we literally had a preschool teacher ripped out of her workplace and detained. We've seen.
See, we're already lying. And he almost took the lie too far by saying ripped out of her class. That's what he wanted to say, but that's not what happened. We all know what happened. ICE was pursuing this woman in the street. They were behind her with the sirens on. And because she loves weaponizing children, as all DNC lunatics loves to do, and illegal immigrants that run from the ICE love to do, they're always weaponizing children. So what she thought was a great idea, because she figured it would be a horrible PR look. It would be a horrible look PR wise on the White House, is let me run into my place of employment, which is a daycare, and endanger dozens, if not hundreds of children by having law enforcement pursue me with their weapons on them, where they have guns, batons, I was going to say stingrays, where they have tasers, mace, all that. Things could go awry so quickly, and accidentally too, where just a weapon of some sort, for whatever mean, even if it's tear gas that, I don't know, accidentally goes off in the daycare, things could have went awry so badly. And that woman didn't care. She was only looking to make a political point by running into a daycare, endangering children, just so that the optics on the opposite end for ICE can look bad, and that we can run and spin a nonsensical story about ICE targeting daycare centers, which they are not, about ICE going in the classroom and ripping teachers out of classrooms in front of their children, which they are not. And he's peddling that same lie here, and he knows it's a lie. That's what drives me crazy. You know that you're lying with your stupid looking face. Brandon Johnson has one of the dumbest looking faces that you will ever seen. You know that you're lying, and you get on national television and you say this stuff anyways. That is atrocious with your dumb looking face. Anyways, let's carry on.
Individuals with documents, and as well as those without documents, detained by these Border Patrol and these ICE agents, indiscriminate the releasing of tear gas against the people in our city. We've had Black Hawk helicopters swarm over the apartments and homes of families on the south side of Chicago, where you've seen black families put in one van and detained, and ostensibly undocumented families placed in another van, while at the same time the president is withholding food from the people in this city.
Holy. How was it? Well, first off, the Democrats caved. So haha, nan and a boo boo. Okay, so the Democrats caved, and the government shutdown is going to come to an end. But once again, that was funny. Haha, Nana and a boo boo. But once again, though, concerning Brandon Johnson lying about Donald Trump snatching food from the mouths of the American people, it's Democrats who refused to vote for the clean CR. It's Democrats that was preventing the U.S. government from funding SNAP. Republican senators, as well as Republicans in the House of Representatives, had already voted on the bill. They were only waiting on Democrats to play their part. And it was you guys who wouldn't do it, playing games with the lives of, what do they say, 41 million people that rely on SNAP. We'll take that on face value and just say that is true. We all know that there is a lot of fraud. 41 million people are not relying on SNAP, but on face value, we'll take it as such. 41 million people need SNAP, or else they can't eat without their EBT. And who was preventing that from happening? It wasn't the Republicans. It takes 60 votes to get that to pass in the Senate. Without Democrats voting on it, it couldn't pass. So it was you, my friend, that were starving the people. But Democrats, at least their supporters, they will look past an obvious truth just to be against Trump. It's crazy, man.
Making it almost impossible for them to survive. And so whether it's the unconstitutional acts that are being carried out by the Trump administration, or the fact that food and medicine has been cut off, the situation has worsened. And we're calling for the Human Rights Council to come to Chicago to see firsthand what our people are experiencing right now.
Imagine going to the United Nations to snitch on Trump and Tom Homan, only for you to lie to them when you get there. Food and medicine is being cut off. They're cutting people off from food and medicine. Nowhere is that happening at all. So you spoke to the United Nations for what again? Just so you can lie to them? That's crazy. But we are talking about Brandon Johnson, so the lies will forever continue. I got one more clip for you guys here, where he was recently speaking about, Greg Bovino and ICE raids and whatnot. I listened to maybe about a good 15 seconds of it, and off the bat, as soon as it starts, this man's lying. Check this out here, because he just can't help himself.
We will not be lectured about public safety when you have individuals who are masked and who are pepper spraying children.
This is what I've been discussing since, I believe, last week or last 2 weeks now, and I'm going to keep reiterating this point and going back to it about how these illegal immigrants, many of them who run from ICE agents, and those anti-ICE protesters, if that's what you want to call it, they're really rioters, terrorist sympathizers. Notice how what I've been saying is coming true. They weaponize their children. They bring them to these protests knowing it's a hostile environment, endangering their own children, just so that something can happen to them. Lord have mercy. And when it does happen to them, when something does happen to their child, you bring them to a hostile environment where things will go awry, where pepper spray will get sprayed because people get out of control and start attacking ICE. When your child gets pepper sprayed, that's used as PR footage for the Democrats to run with and say, ICE is pepper spraying children. How sick are these people, man? How sick are they? I saw a video recently. I don't have it queued up right now, but hopefully I'll be able to find it and I'll just integrate it into the video, where you had these DNC lunatics. You know how they like to go on ICE patrols and they chase behind ICE, and ICE will literally try to outmaneuver them and get away from them by speeding. ICE will start running red lights just to get away from these people, and these people will run red lights behind ICE, chasing them. There was a video where an ICE agent maced one of the guys that was chasing them. He was able to, I guess, do a little U-turn, get alongside of him, pull his mace out, and mace the guy that was chasing them from inside of his car. The guy then turns around. He gets out of his vehicle with his wife and is showing that his child got mace. Okay? And they're using this and videotaping it to show the world, apparently, oh my God, they maced my child. you should have your child taken away from you. Because it makes me upset because I'm a father. I would never in a million years, there's no amount of money you can pay me to put my child in that kind of danger. Why would you be on ICE patrol chasing ICE agents in your vehicle with your child inside? You're pursuing them just so your child can get hurt. And then when your child gets hurt, you use them as a prop to gain sympathy to bring an end to mass deportations. That is sick. These people are sick. And then you have someone like Brandon Johnson that'll take that and run with it and lie and say that ICE is pepper spraying children. These people are disgusting.
Tear gassing our police officers. The chaos and cruelty will continue until we get Bavino out of our city.
This man said that they're tear gassing police officers. Honestly, I don't have anything else to say. It's just like, how do you just, this is, some people don't like when I say this, but this is why I say that Brandon Johnson needs to be thrown in jail. Right? I get it. It comes off as anti-freedom of speech, but as always, and I'm going to keep defending my personal position on this. As a public official, the mayor of a city, a public elected official, lying to this magnitude should be considered a crime. That goes far and beyond the pale of free speech. This is not free speech, what he's engaging in right now. This is a complete lie by the mayor of a city. And it's lies like this that lead to ICE agents being shot at. So it's not just that you're talking, running your mouth and saying nonsense, but these are vicious lies that can and will lead to people losing their lives, whether it be an ICE agent, as they recently have been shot at in Chicago, or whether it be ICE returning fire and taking out somebody who's shooting at them. And you all know these people are so sick. You all know what Brandon Johnson would love nothing more than to happen. You all know what these Democrats would love nothing more than to happen. They would love nothing more than a shootout to occur in Chicago between ICE and whatever, entities that they have, gang members over there. I think they said Latin Kings on Fox News that apparently have put hits out on Greg Bavino. They would love nothing more than for a shootout to break out between ICE and these gang members in Chicago for an innocent person to end up losing their life. They will run with that like crazy. These people are sick and demonic. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I'm going to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.